Shri Sri Radha Krishna Gopa Govita Shyama Sundar Radha Kali Giri Govardhan Ki Jai Shri Vrindavan Dham Ki Jai Navadha Dham Ki Jai Gam Jamuna Tulsi Bhakti Devi Ki Jai Ananda Koti Vaishnava Vrinda Ki Jai Samavetta Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai Jo Premanandi All glories to some devotees, all glories to some devotees, all glories to some devotees, all glories to Sri Guru Ji Gram, all glories to Srila Prabhupada. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prastha Bhutale Shrimati Bhaktivedanta Swami Niti Namane Namaste Saraswata Devi Gauravani Pracharane Nirvashesha Shunyavadi Paschacharya Tarare Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Reading from Srimad Bhagavatam 10th Canto, chapter 14, verse 13. Jagat Trayanto Dadi Samplavode Narayanasyo Dada Nabi Nalad Vinirgato Jasviti Vangna Vaimarasha Kanvisharat Vanna Vinirgatosmi. Jagat-traya, of the three worlds, Anta, in the dissolution, Udadi, of all the oceans, Samplava, of the total deluge, Uday, in the water, Narayanasya, of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Narayana, Udara, growing from the abdomen, Nabi, from the navel, Nalat, out of the lotus stem, Vinirgata, came out, Ajja, Brahma, to indeed, Iti, thus speaking, Vak, the words, Na, are not, Vai, certainly, Mrisha, false, Kintu, thus, Ishvara, O Lord, Tvat, from you, Na, not, Vinirgata, specifically emanated, Asmi, I am I. Translation, my dear Lord, it is said that when the three planetary systems are merged into the water at the time of dissolution, your plenary portion, Narayana, lies down on the water gradually a lotus flower grows from his navel, and Brahma takes birth from that lotus flower. Certainly, these words are not false. Am I not born from you? Although every living being is a child of God, Lord Brahma here makes a special claim because he takes birth on a lotus flower that emanates from the navel of Narayana, the personality of Godhead. Ultimately, all living beings are equally expansions of the transcendental body of the Supreme Lord. But Brahma has an intimate relationship with the Lord because of the activities of universal creation. So he uses the prefix of V in the word Vinirgata to beg the Lord's special mercy. Lord Brahma is called Ajja because he is not born from any mother, but rather emanates directly from the body of the Lord. As Srila Prabhupada states in Krishna's Supreme Personality of Godhead, it is naturally concluded that the mother of Brahma is Narayana. On these grounds, Lord Brahma is requesting special forgiveness for his offenses. So here, Brahma is explaining his origins. Now, one of the names of Brahma is Ajja, which means not born. But actually, Brahma, like every other living being, has a material body. We can really apply the term Ajja to the Supreme Lord, who has an eternal spiritual body. So Brahma actually doesn't have a spiritual body in most cases. It's a material body, and he does have a birth, so to speak. In other words, the Atma combines with the material body at a certain point in time. However, Brahma is distinguished from the other living entities within the material world because of his extraordinary birth. He has no mother at all. Now, other births take place through a mother and a father and come out of a mother, but here he came out of the navel of the Supreme Lord, so that's rather original. So in that way, he's not born in the same way as other creatures. So in that sense, he is Ajja. And of course, he is also very special. He is a guna avatar of the Lord. So he's not an ordinary living being. In spite of the fact that he may have a material body, he is given special powers for creation of the beings in the material world. That is, giving the jivas of the material world certain types of bodies. So he is the, if we don't want to call him Ajja, unborn, we could say he's the firstborn in the material world, coming from Narayan. And then Brahma makes the bodies for all the other living entities. So in the fourth canto, it is described how Brahma makes different bodies. Through his mind, he creates the Prajapatis and Narada Muni and the Kumaras and everyone else. And then Shiva also emanates from his forehead in anger. And then the Prajapatis and Manu also, Swayambhuva Manu and his wife also appear. And in this way, the original Prajapatis come out and they create the other bodies for the other living entities, that is the human-like bodies. And then he also creates all the different animals and plants, etc. So he is the creator of these bodies for the living entities. So he has a very special position, and therefore he's called Ajja. He's the unborn one, whereas everyone else is born in a more normal way. So in spite of that, being special, in one sense, he's not so special after all, because he's got a material body, and he can be subject to ignorance and whatnot, unlike the Supreme Lord. But he's saying, I'm a little special because I have come out of you. Haven't I come out of you? So there's a little bit of a special position of Brahma. And of course, the way is also very special because it's from the navel and through the lotus, etc. And therefore, because of his the special nature being coming directly from the Supreme Lord, whereas other living entities are born with material bodies from normal mothers and fathers, he in that way begs for special mercy because he has come out in a very special way. So why is it special? Because the Supreme Lord himself gives some privilege to Brahma. He appoints him in this position of being Brahma, and therefore he has that privilege of directly coming out of the Supreme Lord. Of course, he also gives special privilege to devatas. They're also given a special position and special power, a little bit less, but they're also given some special powers by the Supreme Lord. And they have some qualification. What's the qualification? They're devotees of the Lord. He will not give these posts to demons, obviously, because he is supporting Dharma and Bhakti in the material world. The demons are against Dharma and Bhakti, so he would definitely not support them. So he finds qualified jivas who have Bhakti, and then he puts them in a certain position and gives them power. So they're all considered to be devotees of the Lord, of a special type. They're called Adhikrita dasas, who are dasas, servants who have given a special position by the Lord. So they are recognizing the Supreme Lord. They are devotees. They have a dasya rasa relationship. But it's a little bit special because it is an empowerment for certain purposes in the material world. They do have another counterpart in the spiritual world. I don't know if Brahma's there, but the other devatas are there in the different directions around Vaikuntha. There's the devatas like Shiva and Vayu and Varuna, Agni, etc. And they're put in the different directions, guarding the directions as devatas in the spiritual world. But they're different because they have spiritual bodies there. So these jivas have material bodies, by and large. Sometimes, of course, the Lord himself may take the role of Indra or whatever, or Brahma, and then that particular devata's got a spiritual body. But in most cases, material bodies, but given position by the Supreme Lord. So Brahma's in that position. He's also special, but he's more special than the other devatas because he's the first one. And therefore he is called a guna avatar, the avatar in charge of creation. The other devatas are not called avatars. They're called vibhutis of the Lord. Their empowerment is more temporary. Brahma's empowerment lasts for his whole lifetime, 100 years of Brahma. The devata's empowerment is 1/14 of a day of Brahma, so it's much less. So Brahma is special in comparison to the devatas in that regard, his powers, his lifespan, etc. And consequently, we can also infer that his bhakti is more. He's given a higher position because he's a greater devotee. So it's explained that usually at the final, the big pralaya, at the end of Brahma's life, that Brahma generally goes to Vaikuntha. We can't say that about all the devatas. But the Brahma generally goes, and many of the inhabitants of Brahmaloka also who are qualified, they also go to the spiritual world at that point. So he is in the material world to fulfill a function. After that function is finished, as a great devotee, then he goes to the spiritual world. So a very elevated devotee in general. Now our Brahma is also very special. The particular Brahma who here has become bewildered by Krishna. One would think maybe he's not so special because he fell into illusion and Maya, etc., and tried to challenge Krishna just like Indra did. But it's also explained in the second canto there that the Lord promised in this lifetime you will not be bewildered. So he is very special, and the Lord will only give that benediction if that person is very special. Just as he gave the benediction to Sukadeva when he was in the womb. You will not be bewildered by Maya when you come out of the womb, so come out. So Krishna gives special benedictions to special people. So he gave that benediction to this Brahma, our particular Brahma. So therefore, he is very elevated. So that is why it's explained that his attempt to fool Krishna here is not normal, because he can't be bewildered. He would have great respect for Krishna and understand his position, but how did he do this? Will of the Lord. Yogamaya. The Lord covered his intelligence for a certain purpose. So therefore it was not the material bewilderment. We see that Brahma in his creation is described how he is the creator of all these types of ignorance, 5 types of ignorance that bewilder the living entities. So how can he fall in ignorance if he's the creator of the ignorance for the living entities? Generally impossible. Very, very difficult for him to fall into Maya. But if the Lord wills it, it can happen. So here it happens to Brahma, who's a very elevated devotee. And we see it happen to Parikshit. Parikshit became bewildered and got very thirsty and couldn't control his senses. So then he insulted the Brahmana by putting a snake around his neck, of all things. Impossible, because he was a devotee of the Lord, he was the king, he understood Dharma, and he had control of his senses. But he lost control of his senses, he forgot about Dharma, he didn't give respect to the Brahmana at all. How is it possible? It was the will of the Lord again. So we see that. And of course in Arjuna's case also, how could he throw down his weapons and become a coward before the battle of Kurukshetra? Will of the Lord again. So that Krishna could speak the Bhagavad Gita. And in the case of Sukadev, or Parikshit, so that Sukadev could teach him Bhagavatam. So this is another case here of bewilderment of Lord Brahma for a certain purpose. One, of course, is to illustrate Krishna's supreme position. The other, of course, it gives an opportunity for Brahma to express very nicely in prayers the position of Vishnu in relation to the material world and the relation of Krishna to Vishnu, that he is superior. So this is in these prayers of Brahma, we'll see that he expresses that actually Krishna is superior to all the Vishnu forms, etc., what to speak of himself. So it's an opportunity for giving knowledge to the people of the world, as was in the case of getting the Bhagavad Gita or the Bhagavatam as well. So there's no loss in that type of use of Yoga Maya by the Supreme Lord. He has a special purpose. Nevertheless, the devotees involved may not understand this purpose also. They also can't understand what the Lord is doing. So here, Brahma is completely humiliated by his experience of trying to overcome the Lord and then understanding that the Lord is greater than him. And he feels like he's made a big mistake, and he feels great regret. And therefore he's pleading for a special mercy, because he is in a very special position. He is the one who came out of the first person who appeared in the material world, and he emanated from the Supreme Lord. So Nirgata means to come out of. He came out from the Supreme Lord. And V stands for Vishesha, which means special. So special coming out. He especially came out of the Supreme Lord. No one else came out of the Supreme Lord directly like he did. And he came out from the navel and the lotus in a very, not an ordinary birth even. And he also had a very special purpose. That is the creation of the material worlds. So it's described there in the second canto how he came out and he didn't know anything. So he had to meditate on the Supreme Lord, and then the Supreme Lord taught him the Chatusloki of the Bhagavatam, and then he got the power to create all of the planetary systems and the bodies for the living entities, etc. So he could fulfill his duties by the mercy of the Supreme Lord. So Brahma ultimately is dependent on the mercy of the Lord. In most cases it is this Vishnu form, that Garbhodakshaya Vishnu from which he emanates. So he depends on him for his guidance in creating the material world. So he is the direct, let's say, link with the Lord. However, we know that Garbhodakshaya Vishnu emanates from Mahavishnu. Mahavishnu emanates from Sankarshan in the spiritual world of Chaturvyuha. Sankarshan emanates from Balaram, and Balaram is under Krishna. So ultimately, all of this leads back to Krishna as the ultimate source of everything. So this is not understood by most people in the material world, and even by most Brahmas. They're thinking, oh, I come from Vishnu, and Vishnu is supreme. So it is a very good realization here that Brahma has, that he understands the position of Krishna in relation to the Vishnu forms. And he got that direct experience by having this, seeing the cowherd boys turn into all the Vishnu forms. And then they all disappeared, and only Krishna was there after all the Vishnu forms disappeared. So he understood that Krishna has the power to manifest unlimited Vishnus who create unlimited universes in which Brahmas are all in each universe, etc. Ultimately, under the control of Krishna. So this is the realization of Brahma. And it's an important realization. It is actually the conclusion of the Bhagavatam, meant for the people of Kali Yuga. The whole Bhagavatam is meant to illustrate this very fact. So here we get an example of how it is illustrated directly to Brahma. To do that, he had to bewilder Brahma. So therefore, don't blame Brahma for this attempt. It was ultimately the Supreme Lord. But it is natural that Brahma, as a devotee, feels regret for having tried to challenge the Supreme Lord in so many ways. So he expresses that regret by his prayers that he offers here, glorifying the Supreme Lord, expressing his understanding of the real position of Krishna in relation to Vishnu and all the other forms and things in the material world. So these prayers actually have become very famous, and we have all the acharyas commenting, making big commentaries on all these different verses because of the depth that is contained in these verses. Brahma expresses himself very well to show the significance of the Lord in relation to material nature and the jivas and the relationship of Krishna to Vishnu, etc. So it's all very nicely explained. And of course, it also combats the Mayavad philosophy and impersonal philosophy that the Supreme is Brahman. No, it is the form of the Lord, either in Narayan form or in the form of Krishna. So here he talks about the beginning when the three planetary systems were merged in the water to the time of dissolution. So this actually refers to the daily destruction. So we have a daily destruction in which the waters of the Garbhodak ocean rise. They're generally in the lower half of the universe, and then the water rises up over Bhumandala and goes over Bhuvarloka and goes over Svargaloka. That far it goes at the nighttime of Brahma. And then obviously the living entities in lower planetary systems don't survive, and only the upper planets are there. So very great destruction. And then and then everything goes dark at night, and the next day the water goes down again, and then Brahma has to start creating populating the lower, middle, and upper planetary systems, the three worlds again. So therefore this is the destruction of the three worlds refers to that when the water comes up above the Svargaloka, and then at the beginning of the next day, then it recedes, and then he has to put all these places in order and put the living entities there again. Here's a daily affair. And then Brahma comes out again, whatever, and begins creating those places. So Brahman has special power to do this. No one else can do this. Brahma is empowered to do it. And he recognizes his dependence on the Supreme Lord. And therefore he says, I'm a living entity who has come out in a very special way from Vishnu. So because of that special position, therefore the Lord should also be merciful to him. On the Lord's part, of course, on Krishna's part, yes, he was very merciful to him. That's why he actually bewildered him. That was, first he gave blessings. You won't be bewildered in this lifetime. And secondly, he bewildered him. It was also his special mercy. And then again, the result here is very special, that we have the prayers of Brahma and the display of Krishna's power by expanding himself into all the Vishnu forms, etc., and making them disappear. So actually in all this, Brahma does have a very special position. He has a special realization. that is not given to other living entities. No one else sees such a remarkable manifestation of Krishna's power in relation to others. Huh? So it's explained in the Nectar Devotion that one of the special qualities of Vishnu that distinguish him from Shiva, Vishnu has 60 qualities and Shiva has 55 qualities. So one of those special qualities is that from Vishnu, all of the universes emanate. And from him, all the avatars emanate. So this refers to Mahavishnu and Garbhodakshaya Vishnu and the creators of the material world, etc. And that's the special position of Vishnu. But then Rupa Goswami remarks that in the case of Krishna, he also does the same thing, but in a more remarkable way. So then he refers to this incident where Brahma was able to see all the Vishnu forms as actually emanations from Krishna. And the Vishnus were actually, of course, emanating universes, but all the Vishnu forms were coming from Krishna, ultimately. So he illustrates the same unique quality of Vishnu in a more spectacular way by being the source of all the Vishnu forms. So, therefore, the qualities of Krishna are very, very special. That ultimately is the whole purpose of Brahma's prayers, to show the unique position of Krishna in relation to everything else in the material world and in the spiritual world.
It's a very well-known fact that Brahma appeared from the nabi of lotus stem and lotus flower. My question is that why is he telling the last line that I was not born from you? These words are not false.
Oh, no, he's this question, was I not born from you? A negative
why is
question.
doubt?
Was I not born for you? Yes, I was. Yeah,
it's just like some son going to the father and telling, are you my father?
Are you not my father? So if you're not my father, then the obvious answer is yes. Yes, you are my father. So it's a negative question with the answer implied, yes. In other words, it's a way of indicating positive, that's all. That I am very special. Am I not very special? Yes, I am very special. So it's a negative question. Na and Kim is there. Kintu.
But as we see, this Brahma is taking directly, Brahma is appearing directly from Narayana, means we can see here from Vishnu. But do you have any explanation about that Brahma is growing and he's getting old, something like that?
Oh, upper planetary systems generally, even the Devatas don't get old. What to speak of Brahma Loka?
But still they die. How do they die then if they don't get old?
They just give up their body, that's all. Death is defined as separation from the material body of the Atma. So it doesn't mean you have to get old to do that. You just separate your body from the soul, and that's called death.
So can you say that this old age is not there at all?
Yeah. Well, even Amrita, what does Amrita mean? No death.
No death.
So that's Sargaloka, Amrita. Even there they don't get old. What to speak of other planets higher than that. So the bodies are not the same as here. So they don't have the Jara experience, but they do have the death experience.
But they don't have birth also?
Yeah, obviously. They got to be born somehow. They got material bodies.
Yeah, see, what I'm saying, suppose in the Swargalok also there is some kind of creation is there. Like, that demigods are getting married each other.
Mm-hmm.
So there is a birth.
There's a birth, yeah.
There's a birth.
Yeah.
If there is a birth, there is a death also.
Yeah. Even Brahma dies.
But that death is not like us, I'm saying.
No. It doesn't involve the same pain and the same problems and sickness and whatever that go with it. And even the birth is not the same. It doesn't involve the same pain also.
When he goes back to when a new Brahma is created, it's the same situation in all planets that he only appears from the lotus?
Well, generally, but it's not always the same. Like, for instance, Shiva comes out of the forehead of Brahma, but that's not always the case. And I think it describes in the Brahma Samhita that sometimes he comes out of the side of Brahma, whatever. Or sometimes he may not even come a Brahma at all. He may be there before Brahma. So there's changing details in some of the aspects of creation and whatever all the time. That's the general description is there. Then there are also changes once in a while.
That means we can say the Chaturmukha Brahma appears in lotus flower, and all that 1,000-head Brahma and million-head Brahma, they may appear in different way.
Could be, yeah. Universes will be different. They may not have 14, they may have more levels also, we don't know.
Maharaj, how do we understand that Brahma is born out of the lotus flower and the lotus flower is born out of the Supreme Lord? And Supreme Lord is pure and he is transcendental, spiritual. How do we understand the lotus is material which came out of Lord?
Well, this is the Achintya Shakti of the Lord. The Lord is spiritual. He has Bahiranga Shakti, which is controlled by him. Yes. So, and then we have Mahavishnu, and then all the universes come out of his pores, like this, which is actually Prakriti. So he can have Prakriti within inside himself or outside himself, and it doesn't matter. But it is different from him, and he's not contaminated by it, whether it's inside or outside or whatever. So it's not difficult for Garbhodakshaya Vishnu to manifest a lotus with all the worlds in it and manifest a material body for Brahma. Because he's simply by his will, he can make the material elements operate to make a body or make worlds or whatever, make a lotus. It's not a problem for him. But he's uncontaminated by it. He's not untouched by it.
Maharaj, you also said that Brahma is a guna avatar of the Lord, and he is material. He's not spiritual.
Yeah.
So, Shakti Avesh avatars, so they're material or spiritual?
Also.
They are material.
No, they're jivas.
Yes.
They got special powers.
Yes.
But they have spiritual bodies.
Okay.
Like Narada Muni. He's in the spiritual world, he comes in the material world, or whatever like that. So they have eternal bodies. So Brahma generally doesn't. So he's different. We can say inferior in that sense.
So Gunavatar is maybe very inferior, maybe much lower than
he's got temporary power, but he's superior to the Devatas because they are more temporary. He lasts for the whole of the life of the universe, and they last for only 1/14 of a day of Brahma or whatever like that. Yeah, but it's permanent.
So it can be the jiva also.
They're all jivas.
Yeah,
Empowered avatars are jivas, but it's permanent.
Then how can
That will distinguish them from vibhutis or whatever.
Then how can we say that if it is jiva is empowered by some power to the Supreme Lord, how can we say that he has a spiritual body?
No, like Nityasiddhis. They're jivas. They got spiritual bodies eternally. So you can say he's a Nityasiddha with special powers.
Well, he has a question. Question is that, see, our body is made of 5 elements. Okay, and earth is prominent in our body. And what about the demigod's body? There are body also
Different elements. It's said that water is prominent there. It is said, I think, that Mahatattva is Brahma's body. And Mahatattva. So most subtle element for Brahma.
Someone I think see that, maybe a third came to maybe, when Brahma was running behind his daughter, he gave up his body. And that body is made of mind, something like the mind is prominent, something like that.
Oh, yeah, although that, when it gives up the body, it means it means a conception, giving up a conception. Of course, yeah, that's not referring to our Brahma, but another Brahma from another universe, I think. It's inferior. No, yeah, they're all. It's like a post. It's like a post. Yeah.
Do you have any name in this?
Not that I know of. No. The four-headed Brahma.
Maharaj, so you told in the lecture, we have spiritual demigods like Varuna, Shiva in Vaikuntha. They are guarding the different directions. So is it like, Maharaj, those people who worship demigod, if they get this knowledge, they can speculate okay, so I worship Varuna and then I go to Vaikuntha to that Varuna. They worship demigod Varuna.
Yeah, but they're jivas. They're worshiping jivas. How can jivas give a spiritual benediction that high? So generally, you do have to worship the Supreme Lord. Of course, they're devotees. But along with the devotee, we also have to worship the Supreme Lord. So we can't say, I'm just going to worship devotees and I won't worship the Lord. You have to recognize the Lord as the master of all the devotees. And then he gives a benediction of destroying karma and going to the spiritual world.
Maharaj, Sukadeva Goswami being a kind of a Atmarama, and he heard from Supreme Lord, and still he couldn't recognize Supreme Lord. Like I said, Sukadeva Goswami, when he was in the womb, like he heard Supreme Lord. I mean, Supreme Lord gave him a benediction that you will not be affected by Maya. But then he became like a Mayavadi. I mean, he
already was. He already was.
He was, yeah. But till the time he was hearing, like, my question is, Maharaj, like, he heard Krishna, but then he could have become Krishna conscious that moment itself, no, Maharaj?
Well, we can say this is a pastime to illustrate the attraction of the Bhagavatam.
Okay.
Because when he heard the Bhagavatam and the pastimes of Krishna, and then he became a devotee. So to illustrate that.
How Bhagavatam transform others? How Bhagavatam transform others? How Bhagavatam transform even the Atmarama?
Yeah. The Atmarama verse is illustrating how it's attractive even to those who were merged in Brahman.
Maharaj, and the different incarnations of the Lord, if I'm not wrong, comes through Kshirodakshaya Vishnu, right, Maharaj, to this world. The different incarnations of Vishnu, or the Lord, the Supreme Lord,
In some places it says Garbhodakshaya Vishnu, so it doesn't really matter because one is equal to the other. They're both equal, they're the same thing ultimately.
Okay.
Yeah, simply because he is in control of Sattva Gun, that's all. Yeah, they may. Yeah, possible. But in the Bhagavatam in particular, it's pointed out that he is Visuddha Sattva. So he's completely different, and he's in control of Sattva Gun, but he is not influenced by it at all.
If we take the mental point of view, if he says Vishnu also Guna Avatara, then so many problems get solved. He's also Avatara. He's not the Supreme Lord.
Maharaj, like this question is regarding Jiva. Like when during the night time of Brahma, there is a annihilation till the Svargaloka. So those Jivas, like what is their destination, Maharaj? Where they will go?
Where?
Where they will go?
Which jivas?
At the time of Brahma's night.
They'll go to sleep. I think they merge into Garbhodakshaya Vishnu. Even Brahma goes in, but his body is not destroyed. He sleeps there, and he comes out again. So all the other jivas can rest inside him also and come out, but they wouldn't have bodies at that time.
Oh, so in the night time of Brahma, Brahma also merges into Garbhodakshaya Vishnu for sleeping.
But his body's not destroyed.
Oh.